Hello students, in last class we have studied about heat, temperature and different scales of temperature. Now in this class I will start the relationship between three temperature scales which are Kelvin, Fahrenheit and Celsius. Okay, so our heading is relationship between different temperature scale. Okay, so first three scales. Suppose capital C denotes the unknown temperature in Celsius, capital F is the unknown temperature in Fahrenheit, and capital K is the unknown temperature corresponding unknown temperature in Kelvin scale. Then we can write. So we can write a formula C by C minus 0. 0 is the lower fixed point of Celsius upon number of division 100 equals to F Fahrenheit minus lower fixed point 32 upon 180 equals to K minus 273 and number of division are 100. When we solve this equation we get C by 5 equals to F minus 32 by 9. These zeros cancel out each other and then by double of 2, 2 5s are 10, 2 9s are 18 and 2 5s are 10. So here third term will be K minus 273 upon 5. Okay. Now by using this relation we can convert any temperature from one temperature scale to another temperature scale. For example, suppose we want to express 100 Kelvin in degree centigrade. So we can use the two terms of this equation C by 5 and K minus 273 by 5. Where 5 cancel out. C we have to calculate. K is given 100 minus 273 which is minus 173 degree centigrade. So by using this equation we can convert any temperature, any unknown temperature from one temperature scale to another scale. Here one important thing which is to be noted, which is that from this equation we can write the relation between centigrade and Kelvin in the easiest form, which is C by 5 equals to K minus 273 by 5. So means C equals to K minus 273. So for converting C into Kelvin or vice versa, we can use this equation. Okay, so this was the important formula for converting any temperature from one scale to another scale. Okay, so now next very important thing, which is, as we know, the same length of expanded mercury column has the marking from 0 degree centigrade to 100 degree centigrade on Celsius scale and from 32 degree Fahrenheit to 212 degree Fahrenheit on the Fahrenheit scale. So we may write, suppose if I draw roughly two thermometers, or we can say if I draw roughly two scales, one is Celsius scale which starts from 0 degree centigrade to 100 degree centigrade, and another Fahrenheit scale, which starts from 32 degree Fahrenheit to 180, sorry, to 212 degree Fahrenheit. Okay, so these two lower fixed point represent the ice point, melting point, and these two upper point represent the steam point. Okay, now from these scales we can write that 100 degree centigrade is equals to the 180 degree Fahrenheit. Because the same length of expanded mercury column has a marking from 0 degree centigrade to 100 degree centigrade on the Celsius scale and from 32 degree Fahrenheit to 212 degree Fahrenheit on the Fahrenheit scale. So we may write this equation. Now from this we can write 1 degree centigrade equals to 180 upon 100 degree Fahrenheit, means 1 degree centigrade is equals to 9 by 5 degree Fahrenheit, or we may write 1 degree Fahrenheit equals to 5 by 9 degree centigrade. Okay, so obviously the size of a degree on Fahrenheit scale is smaller, 5 by 9th than the size of degree on the Celsius scale. Example, a rise in temperature of 30 degree on the Celsius scale is equal to a rise in temperature of 9 by 5 into 30 equals to 54 degree on the Fahrenheit. Suppose the question is this: the rise in temperature of 30 degree on the Celsius scale is equal to fill in the blank, rise in temperature of Fahrenheit scale. So as we know, the rising temperature, it will be, solution is, it will be the rise in temperature of 9 by 5 into 30 by, as we know, 1 degree centigrade is equals to 9 by 5 degree Fahrenheit. So rise in temperature of 30 degree on the Celsius scale will be equal to 9 by 5 into 30 degree Fahrenheit. So it will be, by solving we get 54 degree Fahrenheit. So answer is 54 degree Fahrenheit. Next example, rise in temperature of 27 degree Fahrenheit on Fahrenheit scale is equal to rise in temperature of Celsius scale. So as we know, 1 degree Fahrenheit is equals to 5 by 9 degrees Celsius. So solution will be, it is so simple, rise in temperature of 27 degree Fahrenheit, it will be equals to 5 by 9 into 27, means 15 degree centigrade. So answer will be 15 degree centigrade. So if we want to find out the change in temperature, then we have to use these relations. 1 degree centigrade, we have to remember always this, that 1 degree centigrade is equals to 9 by 5 degree Fahrenheit, and 1 degree Fahrenheit is equals to 5 by 9 degree centigrade. Okay. So now next example, it is calculate the normal temperature of the human body 98.6 degree Fahrenheit on the centigrade scale. So simple. Always remember, if you want to change the temperature from one scale to another scale, we have one formula having three terms. And this, as we know, in this question we have to convert Fahrenheit into centigrade. So we can use two terms from that formula. Two terms which are C by 5 equals to F minus 32 by 9. So in this case we can write C by 5 equals to F minus 32 by 9, as the F is given 98.6, so C is unknown. 98.6 minus 32 by 9. When we solve this, then we get C by 5 equals to 66.6 upon 9. So C will be, after cross multiplication, 66 C will be 66.6 upon 9 into 5. When we solve this, we get 37 degree centigrade, and as we know already, the normal temperature of human body in centigrade scale is 37 degree centigrade. Okay, so these formulas are used, can be used for converting any temperature scale from one to another, and similarly we can also find out the change in temperature scale by using the upper formulas. Okay, now next heading is modes of heat transfer. As you know, there are three modes of transfer of heat: conduction, convection and radiation. What? Conduction, convection and third is radiation. Okay. Now first is conduction. As we know, conduction usually takes place in solids. Heat is transferred by the process of conduction when particles of the medium at different temperature are in direct or indirect physical contact. For example, if one end of metal rod is placed over a burning flame, its other end gradually gets heated. Heat is transferred from the hot end of the rod to the cold end through atoms of the rod by the process of conduction. So we can define it. Conduction is the process of transfer of heat from the hot end to the cold end, from particles to particles of the medium. Okay, and conduction is not possible in vacuum. It requires medium. So it's not possible in vacuum. Okay. Or one essential condition: body should be at different temperature and should be in direct or indirect contact, or you can say physical contact. Okay, now we can explain this by experimental demonstration. One experiment is here. Take a metal rod AB okay, now in your hand and heat the other end A over the flame. In the beginning, the end B of the rod in the hand is not felt hot, but very soon you will find that this end B become hot and you are not able to hold the rod any longer. It means that some heat has transferred by conduction through the rod from heated end to cold end. Okay, now by this experiment we can conclude that the conduction is a method of heat transfer. So in which the heat from one place is transferred, one end, hot end is transferred to other cold end. Now explanation of conduction. Each solid contains atoms in a regular arrangement and they vibrate about their mean positions under the attractive forces amongst them. On heating one end of the solid, the atom at the heated end absorb energy and begin to vibrate with a large amplitude without leaving their mean positions. They set the neighboring atoms also in vibration by the transfer of part of energy to them. These atoms on gaining heat energy now begin to vibrate with a large amplitude and set the other neighboring atom in vibration by transferring a part of energy to them. This process continues till the entire arrangement of atoms begin to vibrate. Thus, heat is transferred from the hot end to the cold end. In this process, the atoms of medium do not leave their position, but they transfer heat energy through their vibration. Suppose some molecules, as we know in solid, the molecules are closely packed. They are arranged closely. If we heat up one end, then the neighbor molecule get energy and it starts vibration about their mean position. Okay, and by getting the energy from this molecule, the neighbor molecule also start vibration. Thus, through these vibrations, the energy is transferred from one molecule to another and so on. And by this process, the whole solid become hot. Okay, now next topic is good and bad conductor of heat. Some substances transfer heat by conduction to a good extent while other substances do not transfer much heat by conduction. Example, take two identical rods, one of metal, say copper, and other of glass. Heat both of them at one end, holding the other end in your hand. After some time, you will notice that the end of copper rod become much hot, while the end of glass rod in your hand does not become much hot. This shows that copper allows more transfer of heat through it, while glass does so a very little. The substances which allows heat to pass through them easily are called the good conductor. So, definition of good conductor: substances that allows heat, energy to pass through them easily. For example, metals, they are good conductor of heat, and also in general they are good conductor of electricity. Why bad conductor? The substances which do not allow heat to pass through them easily are called bad conductor or insulator. For example, air, glass, wool, cloth, distilled water, paper, clay, etc. Now, some examples of good conductor and insulator. First is, as we know, in winter, a piece of iron on being touched by hand appears colder than a piece of wood. Why? Because iron, being a good conductor of heat, when touched conducts away heat from our hand, and therefore it appears to be cold. But wood, being a poor conductor of heat, does not conduct heat from our hand, and therefore it appears to be at the room temperature. Thus, in winter, the piece of iron appears to be colder than the piece of wood. Now, next example is, in summer, if a wooden chair and an iron chair both kept in sun are touched, the iron chair appears to be warmer than the wooden chair. Why? Just think. The reason is, on touching, heat is conducted through iron from the iron chair to the hand. So it appears to be warmer, while no heat is conducted through wood from the wooden chair to the hand. So it appears to be at the room temperature. Okay. So some practical uses are also here. Next topic is some Practical uses of bad conductors of heat. First, house insulation. House insulation. As we know, first point in house insulation is double wall windows. In cold countries, the windows in a room are provided with two glass panes with a layer of air in between. Why? Since air is a poor conductor of heat, it checks the conduction of heat from the room to the outside in winter or the conduction of heat from outside to the room in summer. The windows of air-conditioned railway coaches also have double glass panes with a layer of air in between the two panes to prevent conduction of heat through the window from either side. Okay, next, igloos. Eskimos make double-walled house called igloos, using the blocks of snow so that the air enclosed in between the double walls prevent the conduction of heat from the house to the cold surroundings. Okay, next, thatched roofs. In hot countries, a layer of mud and straw is laid over the roof of the house in between the concrete and brick tiles. This layer does not conduct heat due to the sun rays into the room of the house through the roof and helps to keep the room cool in summer. Next is personal insulation. First, woolen clothes. Why we wear woolen clothes in winter? Woolen clothes have fine pores filled with air. The wool and air both are bad conductors of heat. Therefore, in winter we wear woolen clothes as they check the conduction of heat from the body to the surroundings and thus keeps the body warm. Next, adaptation in animals. In winter, birds puff up their feathers to fill them with more air. Air being a bad conductor of heat does not allow heat to conduct from their body to surrounding and thus keep them warm. Similarly, the animals living in cold regions have their bodies covered with thick fur, which traps in a large amount of air to keep them warm. Next is insulation in household appliances. First is double walls in oven. An oven is made of double walls and the space in between the walls is filled with a poor conductor such as slag wool or glass fiber to prevent the loss of heat of oven by conduction to the surroundings. Second is insulating handles. Cooking utensils are made of metal so that heat can easily be conducted through their base. But they are provided with handles of bad conductor such as ebonite or wood to hold them easily as handles will not conduct heat from the utensil to our hand. Third, double walls in ice box. An ice box is double walled box. The space between the walls is packed with insulator like cork, glass, wool, etc. to provide heat insulation so that heat from outside is not conducted to the ice inside the box and ice does not melt. Similarly, there are some practical use of good conductor. soldering iron. The bit of a soldering iron is made of copper, so that when the tip comes in contact with the material to be soldered, heat is rapidly conducted from the heated part of the bit to the tip, and the temperature of tip become higher than the melting point of the soldering material. Thus the soldering material soon gets melted. Next, cooking utensils. As I have told you in upper point, the cooking utensils are made of metals such as copper, aluminium, brass, steel, etc. So that heat is easily conducted through the base of utensils to their contents. Next, wire gauge. A wire gauze is generally used when a glass vessel is heated over a flame. The reason is that the wire gauze is made of metal, say iron, which is good conductor of heat. So heat from the flame is conducted over the entire wire gauze and the glass vessel is uniformly heated. If the glass vessel is kept directly over the flame, the vessel will get heated unevenly as glass is poor conductor of heat and so the vessel will crack. Next, thermometric liquid. The liquid used in thermometer must be good conductor of heat so that it may soon acquire the temperature to be measured by the thermometer. Since mercury is a very good conductor of heat, mercury is used as the thermometric liquid. Okay, and some other examples are also here. Covering of heating element in an electric geyser. The heating element is surrounded by the copper tube. Okay, so this was some example of good conductor and poor conductor. Now in next class we will discuss heat conduction through liquid and gases. And as we know, conduction takes place generally in solids. And and two other modes of heat transfer: convection, convection and radiations. Their examples, their applications. Okay, so thanks, student.